Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless are beefing again. And it's petty. It's always something petty with these two. I remember last year when they had another beef over probably the most egotistical thing I've ever seen in the world.
Debate Network, the origins of First Take, the origins of this embrace the debate notion. Where did that come from? Where was that sort of driving force behind that?
As it pertains to First Take. Yes. Skip Bayless was doing his thing with First Take, having the two live stews, Jamel Hill, Rob Parker, and various other people debating against him. And then in 2012, they weren't satisfied with the numbers. They weren't satisfied with the ratings, the level of revenue that was being generated. Skip Bayless comes to me in the parking lot on the campus of ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. And he says, I know you got your plans. You love the NBA. You love being out on the road. You love being in the locker room. But he said, but I need you. He said, I can't. I've done all that I could to take this as far as I could go. I need you to do this for me, please. He said, I just need 3 years. He said, I think we'll knock it out the park.
Yo, let me tell you how petty these dudes are. Skip Bayless heard that Stephen A. Smith told a story on JJ Redick's podcast about how Skip Bayless came to him practically begging him to join First Take because the ratings were tanking. Skip Bayless got such an ego that he was irate at the thought that Stephen A. Smith would tell the public that First Take was tanking, and Skip Bayless told Stephen A. Smith, I need you. So he went on his podcast and unleashed on Stephen A. Smith.
All I know for sure at this point in time is that Stephen A. Smith made some statements on JJ Redick's podcast last week that flat out blindsided me, that stung me to the core, that ultimately made me angry and made my wife Ernestine even angrier. And she knows Stephen A. very well, maybe even better than I do in some ways. I cannot tell you how wrong that was. It was so recklessly inaccurate. It was such shocking fabrication. And my first thought when Ernestine sent this to me to peruse, I thought, how could my brother Stephen A. turn on me like that?
Yo, listen, having ego is one thing. Being that egotistical, yo, you're sick. like you're sick. Even a notion that you ever needed somebody got you upset. Now, apparently they squashed that beef though last year, but they're back beefing again over something that Skip Bayless said on Undisputed with his new co-host. And in Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless fashion, the beef is over something petty per usual.
Now, more backstory from my side. First Take at that point was on probation because we had had several incidents, fortunately not involving me.
So Skip is explaining to Richard Sherman why he didn't attack Richard Sherman back when Sherman was on First Take attacking Skip Bayless. Now, Skip Bayless' reasoning for why he didn't go personal or defend himself was because First Take was on probation. Now, he really didn't touch on why First Take was on probation. He just said, oh, it wasn't because of me. First Take was not on probation because of me, right? He said it in passing, but Stephen A. Smith got such an ego that Stephen A. Smith, even thinking that one person will catch on and think that First Take was on probation 11 years ago because of him, he can't have that. So Stephen A. Smith had to do a 20-minute segment breaking down why First Take was not on probation because of him.
But we were one day away from our audition period trying to stay clean. So I'm thinking quickly as you come after me, oh my God, this is terrible, because Stephen A. badly wanted to get an afternoon slot so that he could sleep a little longer because he goes late to the games and goes to a lot of games. I'm pulling for him and for us to get it. So I am dancing as fast as I can, thinking, I can't really fight fire with my usual fire, or this is going to blow up, not that it hadn't already.
Right.
Skip Bayless told the truth. We were in dicey situations. But I want to remind everybody, I wasn't the only reason. The part that Skip Bayless did not say.
It's literally petty. So Stephen A. Smith is legit about to tell us, Skip Bayless ain't lie. I was part of the reason why we were on probation. But, he left out the fact that the bosses thought he was a total clown show. He's essentially about to tell us that the bosses of ESPN had them on probation as well because they didn't know about Skip Bayless' antics and they thought Skip Bayless was a clown for his Tim Tebow takes.
The part that Skip Bayless left out was the fact that the bosses at the time didn't care. They had remembered that Skip Bayless lived off of talking about Tim Tebow every day before I arrived. They had accused Skip Bayless, meaning the public, of being a caricature of himself. And even though Skip was incredibly proud of his Tim Tebow coverage and what was peeled from it, the bosses weren't necessarily enamored with it. The network wanted to make sure that our show wasn't one that just generated ratings, but one that didn't cause them embarrassment and shame. But in the end, they weren't too happy with it. The bosses I'm talking about. That is where the probationary period came from too. So I thought Skip left that out. So I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that. But he left that part out about Tim Tebow and him. That had a lot to do with ESPN's reservation.
I can tell both Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless that we don't care. Like, I promise nobody in their right mind is listening to a 20-minute Skip Bayless rant and pulling that 5 seconds. That 5 seconds of audio where Skip Bayless is saying, oh, First Take was on suspension or on thin ice 10 years ago, and it wasn't because of me. It was for other reasons. Nobody is pulling that and looking at Stephen A. Smith in a disparaging manner. The fact that Stephen A. Smith's ego couldn't take a 5-second snippet or clip that assigned blame to him in any form is crazy to me, bro. But also, too, like, what that also kind of like highlights as well, past Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless, yo, how culturally clueless the bosses were. Like, the bosses really thought that Skip Bayless being a clown show and rooting for Tim Tebow was bad for business. What? No, like, the Tim Tebow and Skip Bayless coverage is legendary. Like, that was literally what people woke up to looking to see what Skip had to say. Like, when Tim Tebow won his first and only playoff game and then got traded to the Jets and then went to the Patriots, and Tim Tebow's first preseason game as a Patriot was one for the ages, bro. We were glued to our desks trying to see, yo, what did Skip Bayless tweet about it, or, you know, what would Skip Bayless have to say the following day? The fact that bosses thought that that was bad for the business or bad for TV, bro, they shouldn't have their jobs any longer. I can't even blame Stephen A. Smith for, I guess, rebuttaling Skip Bayless, because I'm sure if Stephen A. Smith would have said something and Skip Bayless would have heard that 5-second audio, he would have made an hour show on it as well, right? But before you guys leave, man, click on the video somewhere on my screen to find out why Boosie just exposed his teenage daughter for saying this on a live stream. I'm going to see you guys in this video, all right? Click on this video. I'm going to see you guys there. I'm out of here, folks. Peace.